Hey everybody, it's Kyle here and welcome to a level design video on 2D level design. And this is just going to be an overhead tutorial. So if you're looking for something more in depth, switch to level design breakdown, because I'll soon be starting on a tutorial where I'll be creating a full 2D sprite based level from start to finish. Right, so that includes initial design all the way through to asset creation, and then to putting it all together, code and everything. I probably won't be showing too much code because I'm not that good a coder, but we'll see when it comes to code. But definitely for the design and the graphics stuff, I'll definitely be showing you guys how to go about it. Now, before we actually get into the game, I need to make another note, and that is the sprite characters. This sprite character, I also have two other sprite characters. They're not mine. I just found them on an asset website, a resource website. And these characters, again, like I said, they're not mine. So if you're making a demo or a tutorial like I am, using these sprites is fine. It's okay. But if you're going to make something and you're going to sell it, it'd probably be a good idea to make your own sprites. So moving on, we'll go and check this image out first, because I want to explain something. There are two kinds of 2D platformer, right? So this tutorial is about 2D platformer level design, but you know, there are some things that you can take from this and apply it to, say, an RPG game as well. So back to the image, there are two kinds of platformer. There's the action arcade and there's action adventure, or arcade and adventure platformer games, however you want to put it. They're the same thing in the end. Let's not get too into detail with this. Let's just say that you know, I am working on an action adventure game, so really when it comes down to it, all the rules that come from here can be applied to here anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Now, actually, back to the demo, there are two axes that we are working on when working in 2D. There's X, which is left and right, and Y, which is up and down. Alright, so that's pretty obvious. Now, because it's 2D, you can't rely on perspective to create depth for you, so you have to simulate it yourself. This is where art class sort of comes into handy. Right, so here we have this blue background, which is going to act as our sky, and we have a light grayish background. I never use straight white, but it's light gray. We have a middle gray tone, and these two tones basically make up our background. So you'll find a lot of games use 2 or 3 layers of background. For me, I'm just going to use these two. And we have this dark gray, which, if I move my character, is actually in front, which is our foreground. Now, a quick rule about using foreground elements, and it will become clear later on, is make sure that you can see at least half of the player character at all times. So, you know, it's a good idea, because you don't want people to sort of question, well, where did my character go? So that's why you want to see them. You know, if you really want to troll your character but not lose interest, not have anybody lose interest in the game, sorry, troll the player and not have anyone lose interest in the game, well, you can always cover his head and his torso and just let the legs show. That's fine too, that'll work. But moving on, let's try applying these 3 values and turn them into actual sprites. So here we have a part of a city. So we have like an apartment that apparently is also a hospital. And we have this building, which again has that sign. We have this smaller brick wall back here, and we have these bollards here. Again, don't cover up more than half of your character, or at least try not to do that. Not to do it too much. So that's one thing that you should do. So this white background has been converted into this brick wall texture. Sorry, this brick wall. I'm still thinking 3D. So it's been converted into this brick wall back here. This middle gray tone into the apartment building. And of course the dark gray tone are the bollards, these little half post things. Now, like I said, you can't rely on perspective in 2D games. to create, oh well, if you're going for that retro look, that is, you can't rely on perspective to do it, so you have to simulate it. So this is where, you know, having the small bricks next to the larger bricks sort of comes in handy. What I will say though is that looking at it right now, I could probably say that well, this brick wall in the background should actually be slightly blue to blend in with the sky, because it is well, it's pretty far away, but again, at the same time, you want to be able to sort of command how far away something is compared to the character. Now, what else have we got? Well, for 2D games, we need context. Just like adventure games, you need context. You need to know where the player is standing at the moment, where they had come from, so information about the previous room, and information on where they need to go, as well as elements to lead them to the right place. So if we go back to this image here, say this black square in the middle is where we currently are, and say we have to go to this area down here in the corner. Well, if we just let the player sort of blindly go through whichever door they want to go through, or however you want to transition your levels, well, they could end up here, they could end up here, they could end up somewhere else, right? They could end up accidentally finding the final boss, and well, that's not very fun. So you need to be able to tell them, well, this is where you need to go right now, right? This area here is where you need to be. So one thing that you can do, and if you don't have the budget or you don't have the time, or maybe it's just not part of your game, you can have like objects, colored objects telling you where you need to go. So these bollards here being red, you know, you might say in a brief cutscene, you know, follow the red bollards to find the first boss, right? Another thing that you can use is, of course, signs. So here we have a hospital, Red Cross, which would indicate that this building is actually a hospital, not an apartment building, right? So you can have two of the same building standing side by side, but they'll be different because, well, this one has a Red Cross on it. Well, we can turn this into a hotel as well if we put a giant hotel sign up front, right? So these are things that you can use, right? So if the goal of the level was to get to the hotel, well, all you have to do is find the big hotel sign, isn't that what you have to do, right? But you don't want to make it that easy. You might want to make it a little bit more pinpoint. So, you know, you might have to say, look for the hotel with a giant gorilla out the front. So that's when you'd probably have like a whole bunch of hotels, and in front of one of those hotels you'd have a character in a gorilla suit or something like that. Another way that you can lead players along, apart from using static objects, is of course our good old friends, the NPCs. They obviously give the players hints as to where to go, and not only that, because sometimes you might, you know, leave the game for a while and then come back. You know, I know that I used to do that a lot when I was like into playing games, and I would sort of leave a game just lying around doing nothing, and then I'd come back to it and I'd completely forget where it was. So this is sort of what you need to prevent, right? You have these NPCs so you can walk up to them and get a bit of a refresher, right? Follow the red bollards to get to where you need to go. So let's follow the red bollards and let's get into the third part here, which is a darker brick wall next to a lighter brick wall. So before we do that, this is all about context, right? Again, like a lot of people might be wondering, well, how can I make an indoor level? Now, if you remember, we have two background layers that we can sort of fiddle around with, right? We have the light gray tone, we have the middle gray tone. When you're working on an indoor level, you only actually work on the middle sort of values, because technically speaking, yes, it is behind the character. The brick wall is behind the character, but if we were to use this sort of tone here, you'd notice that it looks like we're outside. Not because of the windows, but because our character almost sort of blends in with the walls. So if we stand here, it looks like he's actually standing away from the wall, whereas if he's standing here, it looks like he's standing like almost next to it, like he's just brushing past it or something like that. So if you're making an indoor level, make sure that you do make the background darker than the character itself, unless you're making, you know, something that has sort of prevents your character from, you know, being able to sort of stand out. But again, that's probably not a great idea. Try it though, see what you get. Now again, foreground elements, you don't want this happening. You don't want that happening, but you know, it's occasionally it might be good fun, but really if you have too many of these pillars standing around, you don't really want that, because one, it hurts your eyes, and two, it just doesn't, something about it just doesn't look right. I mean, you can test it out to see for yourself, and really that's, as a level designer, that's what you should be doing, testing it out and seeing what happens. Now indoors, you might have, you know, a change in how you interact with the world, so you can still be following things in the foreground, but you might have things like pipes above the character's head, you might have lights behind the character on the walls, you might have a few NPCs as well inside. I mean, that's possible, but the idea is that you still need to constantly lead the player on towards where they need to go. You need to hold their hand in adventure games, otherwise they get lost and sort of things just get boring very quickly. So that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you learned something about context, using context in 2D games. But if you have any more questions, put them in the discussion section, because I don't really read comments that much. And again, if you're looking for something more in depth, switch over to Level Design Breakdown, because that's where I'll actually be creating a fresh level from start to finish, and I will actually explain things in greater detail than I have, because this is just an overview. And until next time, I hope you guys have fun building levels and building games. So I'll see you then. Bye.